Okay, we're going to get started. Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second installment of our 2016 Kids Discover Online webinar series. My name is Ted Levine. I'm President and CEO of Kids Discover, and we're extremely excited to have all of you join us today for our webinar. It's all about driving inquiry with Kids Discover Online's Discover Map. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. We know you've all got a lot on your plate, and so we really appreciate you attending this webinar. We're really excited to have our guest presenter, Christina Schiraldi, with us. She's put together an awesome program, and she's worked with Kids Discover now for a couple of years, sort of as an informal advisor. So she's got a lot of great methods and activities to share with you, and she's also going to spend some time demoing Kids Discover Online's Discover Map. We've got a wide mix of attendees here with us. We've got some people who are using Kids Discover Online already, and we've also got some individuals attending who are just learning about Kids Discover as a company. So for all of you who are new to Kids Discover, we're a small family-owned and operated publisher. We've been in business now for 25 years, and we specialize in science and social studies reading for educators and students in grades 3 through 8. And a lot of educators across the country know us as Kids Discover Magazine, which we've been producing for 25 years, since 1991. But as many of you know, the way in which science and social studies content, and really all content, is being distributed, accessed, and consumed is changing really rapidly. And so that's led us to create Kids Discover Online, which is a digital library of all of our resources. We offer it up as an all-access plan, so as long as you have a subscription, you get access to everything. And we've been really excited the last few months since we launched it about the feedback we've been getting and the adoption that's been going on across the country. Before we kick off the webinar, there's just a few housekeeping items that I want to go over. First and foremost, this webinar is being recorded. We'll be sending everyone an email tomorrow with a link so you can view this recording, and you can also share it with your colleagues. We're also going to be posting a couple polls at the beginning of the webinar. These are going to pop up on your screen. They look like short, multiple choice questions. Christine will walk you through when they go up. Please vote. Obviously, the more participation we get, the better the results will be. We'd also encourage you to type in questions. There's a little questions module on the right side of your screen. We've got a couple Kids Discover team members who will be answering questions throughout the webinar, and we're going to pick a handful of them to do sort of a Q&A towards the end with myself and Christine. So please type in your questions. We'll try and get to them as a direct answer throughout the webinar and also towards the end. If your question doesn't get answered, we're going to make sure that we connect you with Christine after the webinar, and we'll also put in our information about how you can get in touch with Kids Discover directly if you have more questions about Kids Discover Online. And lastly, everyone who has registered for this webinar or any one of our webinars in our webinar series has automatically been entered into a drawing to win one of 3 school-wide subscriptions to Kids Discover Online. So that's usernames for every single educator and student within your building for a 12-month period, access to all of our content. It's a tremendous value. We're really excited to be able to offer up 3 of these, and we'll be making an announcement of the 3 lucky winners towards the end of next week when the webinar series has come to a close. So be on the lookout for an email towards the end of next week. Over the past 2 years when we were developing Kids Discover Online, we leaned pretty heavily on Christine for her advice and feedback. And she was extremely encouraging of us to build a feature that would encourage students to take control of their own learning, something that would really pique their curiosity. And so I think it was only fair that we invited her to share her thoughts on how to drive inquiry-based learning methods and activities with the tool that she helped encourage us to build. So Christine is an educational technology consultant at Rutgers University. She specializes in e-learning and mobile learning, and she does a ton of professional development with educators in the tri-state area and also nationally. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over the mic to Christina Schiraldi. Christine, take it away.
Thank you so much, Ted. I am really excited to be here with all of you to talk about driving inquiry and using the Kids Discover Online Discover Map. Before we dive into our presentation and demonstration, I would like to encourage you to, if you're on Twitter, to follow me on Twitter. You can also follow Kids Discover. And we'd love it if you would send out Twitter messages either during or after the presentation to share your reflections, resources that you're using to drive inquiry. And this way we can build a community around this topic. You can also find here my website, which is christineschiraldi.com, and you can get in touch with me through the website. I'm also going to be sharing some resources at the end that relate to the presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing a combination of slide presentation resources and examples, and also live demonstration with the technology. So for the first part, we're going to take a look at some information on the slides. To start off our thoughts about inquiry-based learning, we have some driving questions that'll help us to think about what we're trying to accomplish here. The first one is, what is inquiry-based learning and what are the characteristics of this approach? We're also interested in why is inquiry-based learning important and how does it benefit learners? And then we would like to know, how does technology support our efforts to incorporate inquiry-based learning in various learning situations? So what we're going to do is first think about what are some of the key characteristics of an inquiry-based approach. So here is one that I think is really important to consider, and that is the environment where students are engaging. And so in an inquiry-based approach, there's less teacher talk and direct lecture-style instruction, and there's more opportunities for students to actively participate in that environment. And the students can pursue their own learning interests and follow their own curiosities. Also, the teacher does honor the students' own interests by providing choices and options so that students can find their own pathways for learning and opportunities to discover what's interesting to them. Another key aspect of inquiry-based learning is questioning. So questioning is important for both the role of the teacher and the student. It's an integral element of inquiry-based learning because students are encouraged to ask questions that they come up with. They're encouraged to share what they're wondering about and lead investigations on what they want to know. And on the teacher side, the teachers are using questions not only to understand what the students already know, but to facilitate discussions, to ask questions relating to how the students can think more deeply or reflect on what they know, and to communicate their understandings. So now that we went over a few of the key elements of inquiry-based learning, we're now going to move into the importance of this approach and why you'd want to provide inquiry-based learning in the classroom. So the first thing we're going to think about is what we already know about curiosity. And so there is a body of evidence that shows that curiosity is essential to learning. And evidence shows that when people are interested and curious about something, they're going to learn more and they're going to learn better. So you can see a cover of a book that's appeared on the screen called The Hungry Mind: The Origins of Curiosity in Childhood. The author of this book is Susan Engel, who is a lecturer, she's an author, and she is a researcher in psychology. And one of the findings that's indicated in her book is that very young children from ages 14 months to 5 years old that were followed by researchers asked an average of 107 questions per hour. So we're going to think about this in terms of what happens when students enter school. And what Susan Engel and other researchers have found is that as students progress through their schooling, less instances of curiosity are expressed. They might ask less questions and they might engage less than they would when they're younger. This is something that I've been curious about and concerned about as well. This decline in student curiosity as children go through their school years was further researched by that author, Susan Engel. And in particular, I want to share with you a study of elementary classrooms in which researchers visited the classrooms and recorded instances of curiosity, such as student posed questions, questions that students asked themselves, and physically manipulating objects and other expressions of curiosity. Now, we just learned in the previous slide that very young children were asking over 107 questions per hour in the study. And so what I'd like to know is your predictions of the study that we are looking at in elementary classrooms. Two different ages were studied, kindergarten age students and fifth grade students. And the researchers visited the classroom for 2-hour stretches of time. And I'm wondering, what are your predictions for the outcomes of the study? Before I reveal the answers, we're going to take a live poll and find out what you think. So shortly you're going to see a question pop up, and you're going to respond. How many expressions of curiosity do you think the researchers observed in a 2-hour stretch? In this case, is a kindergarten classroom on average. So please tap on your answer, and then you can tap on submit or click on it. So I'll give you a moment to send in your response, and we'll take a look and see what people think. All right, so according to our results, it looks like a lot of folks think that there's quite a number of instances. Between 9 and 12 seems to be the majority here. So we really appreciate you giving your feedback and response on that. Now, before we reveal what the study showed, we're going to move on to the fifth grade question, which is also during a 2-hour block of time. How many expressions of curiosity, on average, do you think the observers found and recorded? Again, this is a fifth grade classroom. I'll give you a couple moments to think about that and submit your response. All right, so let's see what the results look like. Okay, well, certainly there seems to be a difference in the kindergarten and fifth grade predictions here. It looks like most folks think that there are less than the kindergarten class and mixed between 1 to 4 and 5 to 8 instances. All right, well, thank you for participating in our live poll. And what I'd like to do is move forward the slides and show you the results. So unfortunately, our predictions were higher than was actually observed. According to this study here, in the kindergarten classroom, there were 2.36 instances in a 2-hour stretch, which averages out to be just about over 1 question per hour in the average kindergarten classroom. And unfortunately, the fifth grade classroom had significantly less, 0.48 instances of curiosity were expressed. So that averages to way less than even 1 question per hour. So to me, this definitely points to the fact that we can and need to do more in our classrooms to provide opportunities and experiences for students to engage in inquiry, particularly as they grow and advance through their schooling years. And so we're going to address this in our session today and talk about some specific ways that we can do that. So we looked at curiosity, and let's take a look at some other important benefits of inquiry-based learning and approaching learning in this manner. So we have found that student interest in an inquiry-based classroom is heightened, along with engagement, excitement, and motivation to learn. We also provide additional opportunities through inquiry to foster higher level thinking skills, developing 21st century skills, And thinking about the evaluation and the analyzing of resources really does provide opportunities that we want to be developing. And then also the authentic nature of inquiry-based learning, where students are following a path that's interesting to them, it's real, it's something that they can be self-directed about, really is quite a benefit for our learners. So now that we have taken a look at what inquiry-based learning is and why it's important, let's get into some specific ways that we can promote student inquiry in our classrooms. Definitely, we want to make sure that our learning experiences are designed so that students have time to ask questions, that they're offered opportunities to think about what they're learning and reflect on what they already know and what they want to know. Building that in from the beginning and making sure that that's a part of the learning process. Another important way that we can promote inquiry is to help guide the students through the process. And so we can use question starters, question stems, and other protocols that will help students to go through the inquiry process because they don't know necessarily how to ask questions or the process they need to go through to make an investigation. And so we can help lead them through that. I think one of my favorite resources to help with these kinds of protocols is through Harvard's Project Zero. You can see the cover of the book, Making Thinking Visible, which would be one of the resources that can help in this effort. They also have a website which is about the visible thinking routines as well. And this provides some really great starting points and structure for having students engage in this sort of thinking and process. So I definitely recommend that if you haven't already learned about or used these visible thinking routines, to take a look at how they can be implemented in your class. There are many classrooms I've worked with and teachers I've talked to and case studies that I've read about that share the implementation across grade levels and across content areas. So it's really a fabulous way to engage students in thinking deeply. I'm going to share with you one specific thinking routine, and that is the routine that's called See, Think, Wonder. And as you can see here in the structure, these thinking routines are meant to be simple but powerful. So in this case, See, Think, Wonder just kind of stands for what we're going to be thinking about. And in this case, first we're going to be thinking about what we actually see. And we can use this routine with a photograph, a work of art, some sort of artifact, a primary source, and the students can identify what they are noticing that's visible in the picture or in that visual. Once they've identified what they see, the students would then think about what they see and perhaps why is that included? Why would that be there? And what do I think about it? And starting to make some inferences and use some of those higher level thinking skills. And then once they've had a chance to think about that second question, the third question is, what does it make you wonder? What questions do you now have? Or what's interesting? Or what's puzzling to you? So it's really a great jumping off point to have the students be inquisitive. So I'm going to give you an example, and the next screen is going to show a picture. This is taken right from Kids Discover Online, and it's from the unit Let Freedom Ring. And in this case, you can see we have some interesting elements that we can point out to our students, but rather than pointing them out, we can ask the students to go through this thinking routine and see if they can discover them on their own. So they can talk about things that they see. Maybe they'll talk about the fact that it looks like the flag is curled up and that there's waves. And what they might think about that is, well, maybe it's windy or maybe the boat is moving. And they might talk about what they see in terms of the people, what they're wearing. Do they recognize anyone? Somebody might say, I think I see George Washington. They might think about that, and they might think about why would George Washington be in a boat? and the other elements. And of course, what they wonder, we want them to wonder. We want to use this as a jumping off point for learning in the classroom. And so what are they wondering? Why is something there? What are their additional questions? So this is a great strategy. I've used this strategy with technology, which we'll look at some examples of that. We're going to also have a very successful use of this just on Post-it notes or chart paper. And it's really useful when the students can revisit their thoughts throughout the process. So having that link or having that chart available throughout the unit is beneficial, and it also builds a community around your endeavor. So now that we've talked about what inquiry-based learning is, why it's important, how it benefits students, and specific strategies, I'd like to move into our live demonstration and continue on with technology-supported inquiry-based learning activities and ideas that can be used in different learning situations. So we're going to take a look at the Kids Discover Online Discover Map interface and access articles and units that the kids can and the teacher can access on their devices. We're also going to take a look at how other platforms that teachers might be using, such as Google Classroom, Padlet, or maybe other online platforms, how they integrate with Kids Discover Online, and also an inquiry-based approach. So I'm just going to take a moment to switch my screen. So in a moment, you're going to see the Discover map. All right, so this view right now is, I'm already logged in, and this is the Discover map, and all I would do is log in and click on the word Discover. And then you can see that I'm offered a number of categories to begin my discovery through Kids Discover Online Library. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a topic that I'm interested in. I'm going to see what I can find. So a topic that I'm interested in, well, I'm interested in a lot of them, but I'm going to click on technology. So let's do that. You can see that when I hover over a bubble that it will light up and get bigger as I go through. You can see that. But I'm going to click on technology. And what happens next is the Discover map will adjust, and it will put my topic in the middle, and it will show all the related topics around it. And this is dynamic, so as I click and drag and move around, the bubbles will move and the connections will be apparent. So I can click and I can drag and I could see, for example, the idea of bridges connects to simple machines. And I can see that when I go to inventions and I move that around, I could see that that's connected to simple machines and it's connected to photography. So it really is a great visual to show students how ideas are related and connected. So I'm going to choose inventions. And again, the Discover map will adjust and change. In this view, inventions is in the middle, and the related technology topics are still in blue. But we're going to notice is that there are some other colors here. So for example, you'll notice Leonardo da Vinci is in a dark blue color, and that represents historical figures. You'll also notice that inventions are tied to the Industrial Revolution, and that is in red color. And red is the indication of American history. Over here on the bottom left, we see light. Light is in the golden color, and that represents physical science. So what's really neat is that the students can click on these ideas and see how they're related. And you can see how there's a bridge between science and social studies, and there's connections across disciplines. So the students can continue to choose larger topics or units, and then the students can go into a particular topic. And one that I'm interested in, I'm definitely interested in Thomas Edison. So I'm going to click on Thomas Edison in the rectangular icon, And the screen will now take me to the information in the library about Thomas Edison, presented to me on a web page. As I scroll, the very top, and this is going to be in all of the pages of content, I will be able to self-select a Lexile reading level. 3 reading level bands are offered, and as I select one, the text will adjust accordingly. And so we'll see not only the ability to be flexible with text, but the students have the ability to scroll and take in visual information. And you can see as I continue to scroll, there's going to be lots of ways that I can take in this content. Some of the topics include animations, maps, interactives, and so you can see that the students can really engage in the content here. Well, let's say I'm finished with this topic and I want to go back to the Discover map. So I'm just going to scroll back to the top of the page and go back and click on Discover again. And this will take me back to the main menu of categories. So now you had a chance to see how I can be exploratory and see how ideas are connected through the Discover map. What I'd now like to do is show you some specific class activities. So in this case, I'm going to play the role of a teacher, and I'm going to be planning for a lesson activity in which I want the students to engage in inquiry. In this example, I'm going to use the starting point of the human body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on human body, and you'll see I have lots of options here to choose from. And the one I'm going to select is eyes. But again, first notice that eyes is connected to some other topics. So I can be connected to the unit about the brain and about the 5 senses. For now, I'm going to click on eyes. And just as we noticed earlier, you can see lots of connections between topics within the human body, but also topics in other areas. So you can see connections to animals and science and historical figures, and this allows students to continue to understand how topics are related. What I'd like to do in this scenario is I'd like to present the students with this map so that they can start here with the eyes topic and engage in inquiry and go in the direction that interests them, and perhaps do some research or to find out some new information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the URL up at the top. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to copy that URL, and then I'm going to paste it into my Google Classroom. But you can also paste it into other learning management systems, but I'm going to use Google Classroom as an example here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to move over to the tab I already have ready, where I have signed in as a teacher in Google Classroom. I'm going to enter my class. And what I'd like to do is pose a question to the students. So what I'm going to do here is click on the plus sign and select Create a Question. Now, I could have selected other things, but this is the one in particular that I'd like to use. So what I'd like to do is push this question out to my learners, and perhaps I have a one-to-one program, maybe I have a BYOD program, but what I'd like to do is have every student have the opportunity to answer my question. In this case, I'm going to ask, what do you wonder about eyes? And in order to support them and help them get started in their inquiry, I'm going to add the link to the Discover map that we just visited. On the bottom of the question window is an icon for the link. I'm going to click on that, and since I already have it copied, I'm just going to be able to paste the link here. Next, I will add that to my question. And then in order to post it for my students, I'm going to click on Ask. So now I have successfully posted the question, and it's ready for my students to see when they log into Google Classroom. So this is the teacher view. What I'd like to do is show you what the students see when they log into maybe their Chromebook or their computer. So I'm going to now move over to the student view. So I'm going to pretend that I'm a student in the class, and I'm going to engage in this inquiry-based learning experience. I'm going to enter my teacher's class. Remember, this could be any learning management system that you have. It will work very similarly. And you can see here's my question from the teacher, ready for my answer, and with the resource. First, I'm going to type in my answer, and I'm going to say, I wonder what causes people to go blind. And then I will click on Submit. So the student now has successfully submitted their answer to the teacher's question. And now it's time to take a look at the Discover map and see if I can find the answer to my question and other things I might be thinking about related to eyes. Here's the link that I put on the question. I click on it, and now it will automatically take me right to that Discover map about the eyes. Certainly there's a lot of things that are interesting here, but since I'm curious about what causes blindness, I'm going to choose eye defects. So when I click on that, it's going to take me into some additional information that I can learn about and hopefully find the answer for my question. Just like we saw in the earlier example, I can adjust the reading level to the just right reading level band that's comfortable for me. I can continue to scroll and learn about, through text and through images and interactives, I can learn about eye defects. This is a great example of an interactive. The students can compare normal vision to nearsightedness, farsightedness, and toggle around and take a look at the differences and make just kind of make connections to what's happening in the eye and what's happening in the picture. So that's an example of some of the incredible dynamic content here. We can learn about diseases of the eye. And as I continue to scroll, I'm going to learn about types of blindness, going to learn about Braille. I can read and see more about that. As I continue to scroll, I can discover what causes color blindness and even see a simulation of what a person who's colorblind might see. And here, as I continue to scroll, I can finally discover what are the causes of blindness. And I can learn that people go blind for various reasons, including diseases, accidents, and malnutrition. So I'm going to scroll back up to the top, but you had an opportunity to see how we can use the Discover map along with Google Classroom. What I want to do now is move over to another example of how you can incorporate Kids Discover Online very easily with other online platforms, and that is Padlet. So I'm now changing to my Padlet tab. This is already loaded up, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background on what you're looking at and what Padlet is. So what you're looking at is an online collaborative bulletin board that I've created in Padlet. The website is padlet.com. It is a free website that lets you log in with a free account as a teacher and allows you to share out links to collaborative online spaces. The students do not need a login. All they need is the link. So just like you saw earlier, once I've created the Padlet, which I'll show you in a moment, I can take the link, copy it, and paste it wherever the students might click on, such as in Google Classroom. So let's talk about the Wonder Wall. Here we are embarking on a new unit of study about space, and the students, I'm sure, have lots of questions and things that they're interested in. The Padlet wall allows them to post what they're wondering about, what their questions are. And this is going to be a parking lot for questions during the course of study. What's great about Padlet is this could be done as a whole class. You could do this on the smartboard. You could do this on individual computers, small group. The students can use, they can work together and talk about their ideas and post ideas in lots of different scenarios. So this is a great example of how you can incorporate inquiry-based learning pretty easily into what you're already doing. What I'd like to do next is show you another example of Padlet. I'm going to go to my Padlet homepage and access another example. This one's a little different. I'm going to click on this one called Maps, Math, and Media. And this is an activity that I did with students where I shared out resources that I had curated for them, as well as set this up so that students can give me feedback and share their discoveries with their classmates. So on this Padlet, you're going to notice some different things. Instead of just having text, we have some images, some videos, and I'm going to go over some of the opportunities you have here on Padlet to add multimedia. So in this case, the students entered the class. I had all the resources and materials ready to go on the Padlet. The students only needed the link, and they were ready to start their investigations. The first post is the PDF handout that they were given in class, but I also gave them a digital version so they can access it online, have all the links be active. The second post here on the Padlet wall is a link to a Kids Discover article on different types of maps. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to open it in another window. And so the students can have access here to some great content. The goal of this class was to have students explore maps and have an understanding of map projections. So this is really great because the students were given a familiar object like an orange, and understanding how if you took a three-dimensional sphere, had a map on it, and then tried to make it flat, parts of the map would need to be pushed down or distorted. So this is the kind of content that the students can engage in. There's maps, there's visuals, there's a lot of great text, and the students can continue to scroll and explore this topic. I'm going to go back over to my Padlet and show you I can also include video content and other online resources. But what's really great as well is that the students can use Padlet to give feedback and responses on the topic. So I instructed the students to post and describe their key takeaways from their explorations. So as they engage with the data and the maps, they learned some really interesting things they were excited to share. This was great not only for me as the teacher to have accountability and understanding of what they did and what they liked, but also the students can learn from each other and engage in discussions and ask their classmates questions about their discoveries. So before I get out of Padlet, I do want to show you how to make a new Padlet, just so you can get an idea of how easy this is. So I'm already logged in, so I have the plus sign available in my toolbar to create a new Padlet. And so a screen will appear, and it will just provide me with sort of a blank canvas where I can customize and add. I can add a title, I can add posts, and I'll just do one as an example, but the icon that looks like a cog is where you can make some customizations to the background and the formatting of this. But what I want to do is just show you how easy it is to add a post, and it's just simply double tapping or double clicking on the wall. So if I was going to use my I topic as an example here, I can type in I discover map. And since I already have the link copied on my clipboard, I can just go to the plus icon to add that link as an attachment paste it here and submit that. And what it does is it gives me an example of what it's going to look like, clicking OK, and now I have a post. And it's just that easy to copy and paste and to create this interactive learning space using Padlet. So now you had a chance to see how we can use the Kids Online Discover map. What I'd like to do now is go back to the slides and just go over a couple of key takeaways before we wrap up. So I'm going to switch my screen back to the slides. All right. So what did we see when it came to Kids Discover Online and how it could support inquiry-based learning approaches in various situations? We saw maybe a one-to-one situation, maybe whole group situation. We saw the See, Think, Wonder example. The teachers can take an interesting visual and share it out with the class to jumpstart an inquiry, to get them excited and thinking about a new topic. In the students' hands, the students using their technology tools can explore the Discover Map on their own and look at and examine the connections and read and interact with the content and see where it takes them. And then speaking of students and flexibility, they have so many options for level text and to be able to engage in various ways with the content. And when you add it with the technology tools that I shared, you have even more opportunities, such as creating a shared digital wall, maybe with their questions, being able to share the resources, links, other ways of engaging in the topic to start and go through the process of an investigation, having a place to do that online, and being able to share ideas, explain what they're learning, reflect on what they're learning, and really have a place to put all that. So Padlet and Google Classroom would be two online tools that work really well. Certainly there are others. Well, so that wraps up the demonstration and presentation portion of the webinar. And so at this point, we'd like to invite you to hear about the answers to your questions. So I'm going to turn it back over to Ted and the Kids Discover team and see what people want to know.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Christine. That was really great. We had a number of questions submitted throughout the webinar. We picked just a handful that we're going to try and address here. We won't keep you too much longer. A lot of really good questions. So I'm going to start off with the first one. This is from Vanessa. She asked, how do you keep younger learners on task when they have so much control over the activity? Really good question. I'm going to direct that one to Christine.
Great. Well, that's a very helpful question to ask, and certainly young learners on the technology will be something important to plan for. And one thing that worked for me in my classroom experience was having student experts. Sometimes when students are off task, it might be because they're confused or they don't know where to go, or they're not sure of the assignment. So having a team of student experts that know the program, that know if you're using Padlet or if you're using Google Classroom or whatever it is that you're trying to do on Kids Discover, I would train a couple of students maybe during snack time or during an opportunity where they were available, and I would show them some of the menu items, some of the tools, and I would get them familiar with it and let them be the experts so that when students were having trouble, I could have a peer help them through the process. So that's one way, and I think too it really does depend on the students and what might be distracting them and what might not be keeping them on task. I think in an inquiry-based approach, usually the students are following their interests and they're more likely to stay on task.
Great. Thanks so much for answering that. This next question comes from Tom. Tom asked, does your content align with Common Core? I'm assuming Tom's referring to Kids Discover Online. all of our material aligns extremely well with Common Core and also Next Gen Science standards. And later next week, we'll actually be rolling out a widget into Kids Discover Online that will enable educators to actually search by standards. So you'll be able to search by state, by grade, and then also by subject matter. And you'll get a list of all the standards that meet that search criteria. And underneath each and every single standard will be links to all the units that correlate directly with that standard within Kids Discover Online. So really excited that we'll be able to roll that out. Currently it's in development site. It looks awesome. I've played around with it personally. We're just making some tweaks, and then it'll be rolled out to the live site later on next week. So another good question. We actually get that one a lot. This next question comes from Heather. Heather asks, would you say that inquiry-based learning is better as an engagement tool or to develop specific skills? Another awesome question. I'm going to direct this one to Christine. Christine, is this better as an engagement tool, or are you also working on developing your students' specific skills with some of these inquiry-based learning activities?
Well, that is definitely a great question. I think that both are very important. I think that getting students to be engaged in their learning is a key element to have them learn. Having them interested, excited about what's going on, I think is a major key. In terms of developing skills and all that, yes, I do believe that inquiry-based learning is an important method that can develop those skills. So when students are investigating content, they're analyzing the content, they are maybe making inferences, and so we are developing skills, and of course we're also developing skills of the 21st century in terms of collaboration. We build in question formulation techniques. So I think that the short answer is I think that it definitely will do both really well.
Cool. This next question comes from Elizabeth. Elizabeth asked, how often do you implement these inquiry-based activities in your week or throughout your week? So that's sort of asking towards the frequency. How much should you rely on this and integrate into your lessons? And I'm going to defer that one to Christine as well.
Great. So there really isn't a magic answer to that, I'm sorry to say. I think that the important thing is to really know your students and to really know your curriculum. There's going to be different answers for different student ages and different class periods that you might have. So what I think about when you think about how often, I think about, are you creating a climate in the classroom for inquiry? Are you providing opportunities for students to engage as often as possible? So are the students able to ask questions? Are the students able to pose their own questions? And a lot of those kinds of things can happen very simply with a Post-it note. You don't need to necessarily even use technology. So I think it should be part of every single school day. It might be more or less elaborate in terms of the investigations or in terms of how deep you can go, but I do believe that it can be quite simple to implement a See, Think, Wonder or another thinking routine in what you're already doing. It just might open up opportunities for more learners to engage rather than one student raising their hand at a time. So I do think that it should be a daily practice and something that teachers really think about and focus on.
Awesome, great answer, and also great question. This last question comes from Colin. Colin asks, would the student need to be signed into their Kids Discover account to click on the link to get to the map page? So the example that Christine used when she was working with Padlet. So I'll take that one. The answer is yes, every student has a username and password to Kids Discover Online. They can access it in the classroom, and they can also access Kids Discover Online at home or in the library setting. And we spent a lot of time trying to make it very, very easy for students to get registered and to sign into the platform. But we also wanted students to be able to use this, in school and out of school, and we feel like that's one of the big shifts that's going on right now in education and learning, is to move beyond the classroom and school walls, and that learning can happen at any time of the day. And so yes, they do need to be signed into their Kids Discover Online account. We are working with some of the larger learning management systems. We're actually working with Google right now to enable a few single sign-on solutions, which has been high in demand just in the few months that we've been live. So that's something that we're working on. I think it's realistic that we'll have some of those solutions available for the following school year, hopefully in July, August at the latest. So another good question from Colin. That's about the amount of time we have for Q&A. There were a few questions that we didn't get to. I want to hand the mic back over to Christine just for some closing remarks, and then we'll get wrapped up.
Thank you again so much for Ted for having me, and I just want to wrap up by saying I really appreciate all of you listening to the ideas, and I'd love to continue the conversation. As I invited you in the beginning, feel free to go on Twitter and use my my Twitter name. You can go on my website, and there's a contact me form if you have questions or things that occur to you after the webinar. I also have here listed on the website, christineschiraldi.com/KDO inquiry. I've put all the links to all the resources I mentioned on the website to make it really easy for you to find. So the visible thinking routines, the curiosity, studies, and links to the tools and examples are all there. So I'd love for you to visit the website, and I'd love to hear from you through Twitter or contacting me. Thank you again, Ted, for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Christine. This was an awesome program. Thanks so much for all the hard work putting it together, and to all the attendees who joined us. If you have questions about Kids Discover Online, please shoot us an email at questions@kidsdiscover.com, or you can give us a call at 212-677-4457. We'd love to hear from you, whether it's feedback or you're interested in learning about how you can use this in your school or your district. Just in a few months of being live, we already have over 30,000 educators who are using Kids Discover Online, so we're really excited about how fast the adoption has been, and we're working really hard to roll out additional features and enhancements to make Kids Discover Online a platform that you want to go to on a weekly or daily basis with your students. You can also get in touch with us if you want another personal demo of Kids Discover Online. We do those every single day, and we'd be happy to put one on for you or you and your team. So again, thanks so much for attending. Be on the lookout for an email tomorrow. You're going to get a link to a recording of this webinar. And then also keep an eye out on your inbox. The second half of next week, we'll be announcing the 3 lucky winners of our giveaway. Again, that's 3 school-wide subscriptions to Kids Discover Online, usernames for every educator and student within your building, a huge value. So keep an eye out for that. And once again, thanks so much for joining us. We hope the conversation continues after this webinar. Have a wonderful afternoon and evening, and take care.